Good evening, Xavier basketball fans. It's the RaGing X Report, and it's our first edition of 2019. We talked with Bill Gabriel about everything Xavier basketball. How we doing, Bill? Good start to the new year, 2019?
An excellent start to the new year for myself personally.
Hope not so good for the money.
Yeah, not so good.
But it's early in the year, early in the conference schedule. We're recording here January the 7th, 2019. We're actually in the middle of the national championship football game. Got it up on the screen on mute there so I can kind of watch it. Looks like it's going to be one of those games we can wait till the end of the fourth quarter and see everything we need to see. It's probably going to go back and forth till then. Xavier Musketeers right now stand 9-7 on the year. And after going 0-2 in the past week since we last recorded, they stand 1-2 in the Big East. So let's get after it, Bill. Let's talk about the Seton Hall game, a game you, I, and actually your entire family attended. Sitting there watching the game, I was really impressed. I had the thought with about 12 minutes left in the game, they've finally started to put things together. They're starting to really progress. Thought they'd played a great game up to that point, had a 10-point lead on the Seton Hall Pirates, and then all of a sudden everything fell apart, and I ended up losing, going away 70-60. What happened at that point?
Man, they had the cart rolling, and the wheels fell right off of it. It was they had a 10-point lead. I think it was with 12, 16 or so to go in the game, and thought I agreed with you. I thought, man, they're in a position where they can, close this out and pick up a huge home win. And then what happened occurred. And looking through the stats for that time frame, that last 12 minutes there, Xavier committed 7 turnovers and missed 11 shots in that time frame, and 3 of those were blocked by the Seton Hall Pirates. So the combination of those 2 factors just made it so they could not maintain their lead, and put them in a position where they lost that lead and were unable to win the game. So whereas I think Seton Hall made some shots there, I think they hit 3 3-pointers in that time frame. So it's just a huge change in momentum, and the 3-point shot was, and I think will continue to be, Xavier's arch nemesis. So that is kind of from just a quick look at it, what happened in that time frame. And maybe it was fatigue. I know a lot of guys played a lot of minutes that game. They weren't really in foul trouble. Would have been, maybe good to see some bench play, but I'm not sure that they were trusted yet in that situation, especially with that 10-point lead, trying to hold on to it, or maybe they're just not skilled enough to be out there. And that is something that they're going to have to prove here as we move through the year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. 2 problems that plagued the Musketeers, really have plagued them kind of all year long. Turnovers been a major factor in a lot of games. Even some of their wins, they were able to get by with major turnovers. And that again, I remember sitting there at half. They had 4 turnovers at halftime, and I'm thinking again, they seem to be taking care of the ball, working the ball around. I thought Quentin Gooden was running the offense like a well-oiled machine. They were looking for good shots. They were taking good shots. They were making good shots. But the other problem this team seems to have, and it starts to become a reoccurring thing, hopefully we're not talking about, but they just go through periods where they become so cold. Is it a choice of their shots? Is it the fact that they're not getting good shots? I'm not quite sure what goes on. We've seen it at the beginning games. We've seen it at the beginning of halves. We've seen it at the end of games. But just definitely came about at a wrong time for this team. And maybe they're just not mature enough or gelled enough to play a full 40 minutes, because obviously they couldn't put 40 minutes together. Yeah, and to your point, Quentin Gooden played all 40 minutes of the game. Paul Scruggs played 39. Najee Marshall played 36, and Hankins and Welledge each had 31. Remember, I don't even remember what his numbers were, but I think Tyreek Jones' numbers were right around 10 or 12 minutes. If I recall, he got in some foul trouble, and actually he had some. He was in on that period at one point where he had a couple, 2-3 turnovers in a row. It seemed like, and I think Coach Steele set him down on the bench because he was not helping the cause. And then they had Miles Powell, who might be, he might be the most valuable player in the league. He actually played 37 minutes. I kind of compared the minutes of the Musketeers to Seton Hall. He played 37 minutes, but then they spread their minutes out. The next guy, highest minutes was just over 30, and they had several guys who played in the high 20s. So maybe it was they were deeper. What can the Musketeers do going forward to make their bench deeper? Is it going to be deeper? That night it maybe was 6 or 7. Do they need to try to make it deeper, or they just need to get in better shape and try to, weather the storm the rest of this year with a seven-man rotation?
Well, I think I think we saw that answer in the Marquette game. Obviously, if we saw some greater minutes for Elias Harden and Keontae Kennedy in that affair. So I think maybe they're trying to build their depth, having those guys get in there, and it's kind of up to them to step up, or maybe it's kind of that fish or cut bait moment. We're going to give you a chance here, and if you can't prove that what you're doing in practice is going to carry over into games, because I'm assuming they must be doing some good stuff in practice to get rewarded with minutes in the game. It's usually how college coaches roll. Then, that's on them. And they just got to make it happen in a game, because I think that they're the two guys who are going to give them the depth where they need it. They don't have anybody down low besides Zach Hankins and Tyreek Jones. So that's not going to change that center forward spot. But everywhere else, they need those guys to spell them, and they're going to have to step up and get it done or not get it done. And it's just maybe cuts their bench down, and they're only going to play 6 or 7, and they have to maybe think about things when they get in foul trouble. So I don't know. It's not a situation I would like to be in as a coach at this level, but it's one I think that Coach Steele finds himself in.
Yeah, and of course I think they only have 10 scholarship players right now overall, and a lot of that, of course, they had loss of Kaiser Gates. That's the thing I look at right there. And again, you can't do anything about it now, but I just thought, he had never fully played to his potential, but I remember thinking going into this season, he could be a major factor in this season. I mean, he give him another big body. He could rebound well at times. He was about 6'8", but he also was a pretty prolific shooter, and we started to see it a little bit last year. He'd never been given the chance, but that's what made that whole thing about him leaving early. Number one, I didn't think he'd ever proven himself that, him going to the NBA, I would have taken that bet. Wasn't going to happen. But here was his chance, I thought. J.B. McCurry gone, Trayvon Blewett's gone.
Yeah.
But he, for whatever reason, and we don't know the ins and outs of it, maybe him and Travis Steele, maybe he didn't think that was good for him. I don't know. One last point I want to make before we move on to the Marquette game, so we can get that out of the way too, because that wasn't a pretty happening. But Zach Hankins had a great first half, and that's a positive I look at that. And I've been kind of hinting at that. I thought he should start. I thought he was a better offensive player than Tyreek. I didn't know if the move would be made. Of course, Tyreek had the injury. We attributed Hankins to starting coming out of after Christmas there. But I thought he looked great in that first half, and I think that's what we got to look at is him to continue to develop and give the Musketeers that inside presence, somebody that can score and get some baskets, especially when they're not hitting their outside shots. But and the other positive I had written down was Paul Scruggs again. Paul Scruggs is probably the most consistent player on this team. He's continuing to put up about, I think somebody said, I haven't looked this up, that he's put up double digits every game. He's a great rebounder for being really a guard, although he's very lengthy, especially with his arms. He's continuing to give him some offense going forward, and his defense seems to be getting better. And his foul trouble, he seems to be we haven't seen as many silly fouls out of Paul, although I do believe he did foul out of the Marquette game. So any last comments or anything on that you want to go with before we move into what I term maybe the worst performance of the year, and that being the Marquette game?
Well, I think as we move into that Marquette game, I think it was a direct carryover from those last 12 minutes, cold shooting and a lack of team offense. I think that's something that, as we watch this team over the next couple of weeks and see if they start finding team offense again instead of, one-on-one, take my guy basketball. I think that's going to improve their offensive efficiency if they can start to find that.
Well, the positive was I was at the game, got to visit the Fiserv, that's the way it's pronounced, Fiserv Forum, the new, very lush and plush NBA arena for the Milwaukee Bucks that the Marquette Golden Eagles share with them. Beautiful arena. Actually, one thought, their shooting was horrid, but I will say the place is a very spacious place, and the ends were very, very deep, so to speak. And it almost, I kept sitting there watching because actually some of the Marquette players seemed to have some trouble shooting. They didn't shoot all that well in the first half either. The shooting background, I think, had to be different. It almost reminded me of the days of going to the old Hoosier Dome or being in a big open setting like that where there's really no background. A lot of the places they play, especially in the Big East, some of the on-campus sites have that direct shooting background, the seats right behind the basket. But I'm not going to make an excuse. But, again, this was a game I never felt the only positive I had was they were only down by 9 points at halftime, and I thought, man, if they could get it together and start playing well, maybe they could make a game of this because Marquette, I wouldn't say played all that well in the first half themselves and allowed the Musketeers to stay around and had horrid free throw shooting. I was very impressed that Tyreek and Hankins were taking the ball to the bucket and getting fouled out. They just couldn't make any of the free throws. So I'll let you talk about 14 turnovers, and again, it's been worse, but we got to do a better job than that.
Yeah, I did not watch the game. It was a very nice day outside on Sunday, so I was listening to it on my headphones out in the yard while I was getting some yard work done, and I know that Byron and Joe just were lamenting the inability to the Muskies to knock down shots. They just were getting decent shots and they were not hitting them. And the 7% that they shot from the 3-point line, I think they made one 3-pointer the whole game. And as the game wore on, I just remember hearing Byron. He was just lamenting every time they made just a one-on-one move and tried to take somebody to the hole and throw a shot. And he's just like, this is not how you win basketball games. And so it just seems like it was a lot of the frustration building up in the Musketeers in that game as they continued to miss shots, trying to run offense. And, the heck with it, I'm just going to try and do it myself. And that's not going to work either. So.
One for 14 from the 3-point line. And we know they're not going to be a great 3-point shooting team. The only thing I have to say is, I mean, you've given him time, but Quentin Gooden, and I was impressed. I don't know if that's the right word. Interested that, they shut him down for a significant amount of time in the first half. Of course, he wasn't playing all that well, and I thought, well, also, he wants to rest him and not playing for 40 minutes. But in the end, because he sat down a significant part of the second half, in the end, he only played 20 minutes. Again, was that to send a message? I almost thought at one point that Travis Steele saying, hey, I'm going to put these young guys out there and get them some experience. This game might be a lost cause. We might as well gain something from it. But the positive was Najee Marshall. Again, he seems to have come to play. He seemed very into the game. Sometimes people say he looks disinterested out there, but he was very, very vocal. Looked like a leader out there, and maybe that was because Quentin Gooden wasn't on the floor quite a bit. And again, Paul Scruggs puts up 17 points, and he hit some shots. You look at the three-point shooters, the guys that have to be shooting are Ryan Wellich is shooting over 40%, and Paul Scruggs is shooting over 40%. And I know that sometimes Wellich is the knock on him. It's hard for him to get open, but I think maybe they have to start running some set plays, some double, triple screens to get him some shots, because we've seen him be able to knock down three-pointers. Sometimes it takes him a while, and he was the only one that hit the three-pointer. So that was probably the toughest game. Marquette is good. They're very deep. They're playing 10, 11 guys. In fact, the guy who, Sakari Annam, I never even heard of. He's a senior, never even played that much. I know, but I think he actually transferred there maybe last year, but he put up like 20-some points, and that was that was way above his average. But they got some good players. Hauser brothers, very, very good shooters, big boys outside, 6'8", 6'9", can knock down threes, can play inside. So, again, that was probably a game that was going to be very tough to win. I think Marquette's going to be very tough to beat in that new arena, again, because it is so different. Plus, again, they got a buzz going. It was 15,000, 16,000, and there weren't many empty seats there. So, we started the second half. Marquette on a 13-2 run, and after that, it was pretty ugly. Any other points you picked up from Joe or Byron?
No, they were just quite, I believe, not too happy with the overall play of the Muskies. Inability to score. You're not always going to knock down outside shots, but when you do take the ball to the basket and you get fouled, you need to make your free throws to compensate for that. And obviously, it's a little bit of a struggle there for a couple of guys. And I made there the same thing you said, that the only two people on the team that need to be shooting three-pointers right now are Paul Scruggs and Ryan Wellich. Everyone else needs to maybe take one, two. That's it. You hit one, you get another one. If you don't hit it, don't take another one, because they're just chucking them up, and the other team's getting rebounds and run-outs, and it's hurting them.
Yeah, and I think the only other shooters who really are supposed to be good outside shooters are Keontae Kennedy and Elias Harden. And I know Elias had a wide-open three-pointer in the first half. There was nobody within 10 feet of him. So, he could set his feet, and he still couldn't knock it down. So, again, maybe the experience that those two gained, Elias Harden, Keontae Kennedy, maybe that experience will pay off somewhere down the road. All right, well, I want to move to a new part of our show. We kind of want to put in here is just talk about the Big East every week, and the games coming up, and the games that have been passed. And my first thought is that it's exactly, we're, for some teams, 2 games, some teams 3 games in, and we only have one undefeated team left already. that being the Villanova Wildcats, and they've only played 2 games. They're 2-0. And I actually watched, I don't know if you saw DePaul and Villanova play, actually when it was a game after the Seton Hall Xavier game last week. Villanova struggled to beat DePaul. In fact, DePaul had them down 14 points in the first half at one time. But Villanova, of course, very well coached by Jay Wright, was able to crawl back, and I think they only won by 4 points. And then they defeated Providence, who is actually the only team that doesn't have a win. They're 0-2. Villanova defeated them on Saturday, and I think that was only like a 6-point win. So going into this, I say the Big East is going to be, I think, exactly what we expected. I mean, it's just anybody, I think, can beat anybody on any given night. And whoever can put maybe some road wins together, although looking at the games, that's not even a factor you can look at very easily. There's a lot of road teams who have won. So what's your thoughts about the Big East? Any teams that look better than you thought or not doing as well as you thought, or I don't know what you've been able to see or read about?
I just in looking at the standings, as you said, you get your Villanova Wildcats there that's currently at the top, but then you got 2 teams in second place, I guess if you want to call it that this early, with St. John's and Seton Hall both at 2-1. And then there's a 4-way group at 1-1 after them with Marquette, Georgetown, Butler, and Creighton, each with 1 win, 1 loss. And then DePaul and Xavier come in after that bunch at 1-2, and then the Providence Friars at 0-2. And I find that one to be the most surprising because I thought they were going to have a little bit more arsenal in the tank. And from the quote from their coach, it doesn't sound like it was a ability to play basketball issue. It's more of a effort and heart issue because he didn't sound too happy with those guys after that loss to Villanova. In the post-game comments that I had seen, read from him following that 65-59 Villanova win. I thought St. John's went in and beaten Georgetown for, what was it, the first time in 13 games at Georgetown. Went off the 97-94 victory in overtime was pretty huge for them. Definitely a big thing to get over when you haven't beaten someone in a while at their place. And then, if Shamari Pons is in that running for Player of the Year in the Big East as well, he definitely is a great player. He put up 37 points in that win. And then the surprising 1-point victory for DePaul over Seton Hall.
Yeah. And again, they played Xavier to the down to the wire, and they played Villanova down to the wire. They could easily be 3-0 the Paul Blue Demons. But again, sometimes when you get a program like that hadn't won for a while, you got to learn how to win.
Yes, they do.
And I look at Villanova on the other end of that. They know how to win, and they may not be the most talented team, but they've been around winning, and Jay Wright knows how to win. So, again, just to remind the listeners, we both picked Marquette as our champion before the season started, and we both picked the same one. We went with a second choice, and I chose – who did I choose? Oh, I chose Villanova, just based, again, on Jay Wright and tradition. And you picked – who did you pick? You picked
Seton Hall.
Seton Hall. So,
yeah.
Again, and I think we were both waiting to see if St. John's was for real. They ran off 13, 14 non-conference wins, but really didn't play anybody. But they did hammered Marquette at home. But yeah, then again, they it's again, and hopefully in a month we'll know. But I get a feeling in the month we're going to have a bunch of teams that are like 6-4 and 5-5, and so it's going to make for an exciting Big East. And I guess for the Musketeers, if they can somehow right the ship and get it together, they have a chance of having a good finish. I think the top 4 probably will go to the NCAA tournament. So Musketeers, all hope is not lost. Well, let's look ahead then at what we got coming up. In fact, I think this is a very important stretch because, well, the next 2 games the Musketeers have at home, I think it's the next 3 out of 4 are at home. So I think it's going to be important for them to try to pull out some home victories here in the Big East. So let's talk about Georgetown a little bit. Now, I will say Georgetown is a team that I've just happened to notice a couple of times. I saw them play a couple of non-conference, and I saw them play a little bit against Butler, who they defeated at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Again, not an easy place to win. I'm pretty impressed with them, and Jesse Govan is maybe the best big man in the Big East. But go ahead, and what do you think the Musketeers need to do to beat the Hoyas?
Well, obviously keeping the previously mentioned Jesse Govan in check. He's averaging 18.7 a game, so if we can keep him below his average a little bit, not let him go off, that would be huge for the Musketeers. Hopefully we can do that with Zach and Tyreek and not have them get into foul trouble against him. He's not just a low post player. He'll go out and shoot a 3-pointer as well. So he's definitely a versatile basketball player. The Hoyas as a team, they average about 83 points per game, which is that's a pretty good offensive clip. They're shooting about 46% from the floor, 36% from three-pointer. They typically make about 8 of those a game, so that's definitely for Xavier something they want to make sure they can limit or keep around that number, because the three-point line is their nemesis this year. They let teams get too many three-pointers in and make field goals, and they don't make enough of them themselves. So hopefully that's something that they can limit them on. I think as long as they keep James Akinjo and Matt McCleary from getting free of the three-point line and limit Jesse Govan, I think they stand a chance. Georgetown also has a really talented freshman forward named Josh LeBlanc, and I believe he had 25 points, or 20 points, sorry, 20 points in the loss to St. John's the other night in overtime. So another solid post presence for Georgetown and Josh LeBlanc. So that's somebody else that the Musketeers are going to contend with.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Jesse Govan, he's shooting 40% from the three-point line and 53% overall, 77% free throw shooter, which is great. I'm sure he gets fouled a lot taking to the bucket. He's their second leading rebounder, 7.5 rebounds a game. So he may be the most complete player in the Big East. And I guess the advantage I see, or the hope I see for the Musketeers against the Hoyas is, first of all, they really have no big wins. I mean, if you look at their non-conference schedule, as I did, the biggest name I could find as a win was Illinois. And, of course, the Musketeers beat the Illini out in Hawaii, and probably their next biggest win was Butler. And, again, I was impressed with that just because it was at Butler. But I would say the experience factor might help. The home court and the experience factor should help the Musketeers because, after Govan, their next 3 leading point scorers are all freshmen. So, although I did read about Akinjo, I believe is the way his name is, he is supposedly the real deal. Very, very talented. In fact, I was reading a preview of the Hoyas, came out preseason, and they said that he would be the point guard that they really haven't had in the last couple of years. That's been a problem. So, again, I think the Musketeers, if they can pull it together, again, we're looking at 3 graduate students, so you got to think of the experience, and Gooden and Marshall, so hopefully they can take advantage of that. And then the Butler Bulldogs will be in on Sunday, and man, I don't know how to figure them out. I don't know if you saw, they beat Florida in a tournament earlier this year. And then just last week, it was right before the Big East season started, they lost to Florida by, I think, 35 points. And I thought I heard somebody on a talking about it on a different game, saying that Florida scored the first 21 points of the game before Butler was even able to put a point on the board. That game was played down in Florida. So what are your thoughts about Butler? Always been a tough challenge for the Musketeers. Again, going to Hinkle Fieldhouse is always tough, but we got them at home on an unusual Sunday afternoon game, although we have a few Sunday afternoon games this year in the Big East.
Yeah, that's a noon start on Sunday, so that's a big difference. I don't think we've been to too many of those games in our Xavier season ticket attendance history. The Butler, they average about 73.4 points per game. They're shooting about 45% from the floor and right around 37% from three. So I think with Butler, it's the Kamar Baldwin show. He gets everything going as well as scores himself. And he's the guy who stirs the pot for them. And if all the other guys are clicking, that's when they're rolling. However, if he can probably get his points, and as long as you limit his assists and kind of keep everybody else in check, I think you stand a better chance than if you get overly concerned with him, because I think that's what gets them rolling, is when he gets all the attention on himself and starts making things happen for him. So I think for Xavier, to successfully defend their home court when Butler comes in on Sunday, that's they just got to kind of keep everybody else in check and not allow Baldwin to set everybody else up to be successful. Limit that opportunities for them that way.
Yeah, I think Butler's always been a team that kind of lives and dies by the three. And if they're hitting, their three best scorers are guys that shoot very well from the three-point line, Baldwin, Jorgensen, and Sean McDermott, who has a little bit of size. He's about 6'7", 6'8", but he also shoots a lot of threes. If they can, guard the three-point line, and I think, the advantage here I would think they would have over this team is on the inside with Zach Hankins and Tyreek Jones. The problem that happened up at Marquette was Hankins got 2 fouls, like maybe within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game. So I think he may have set the bench the rest of the first half. And Tyreek came in, and again, he played pretty well, but he just couldn't hit his free throws when he was fouled. So again, I think there's a way for the Musketeers to win this game. Again, it's a home game. We got the Xavier students, I believe, back on campus, so get the atmosphere going there. So hopefully we can go 2-0 and get back in this Big East race. And I think these are two teams. Again, I think any team in the Big East can beat any team on any given night. So Travis Steele has his work cut out for him, though, trying to figure this out. But made some moves on Sunday maybe to try to get some people's attention, and we'll see how that works out. Any final thoughts before we move to trivia, Bill?
Nothing that I have here. But, looks like I need to set out there for the masses to hear about. Nothing. No good info left. Get it all out there.
One comment I will make. I read somewhere that a game started yesterday in Milwaukee. Actually started at 11 a.m. up there, and I don't know if this was a Marquette fan or somewhere I read said the reason they started that game so early was so Marquette could serve Xavier their lunch, and they did that. So, all right, we move on to trivia, and I always try to pull in something we've talked about tonight. So we got the Georgetown Hoyas coming to town on Wednesday night. I think that's a 6:30 start, one of your favorites. And we, of course, know the head coach of the Georgetown Hoyas is
Patrick Ewing.
Patrick Ewing. Here's something I didn't know about Patrick Ewing, and I don't know if you did or not, but did you know Patrick Ewing actually was not born in the United States? He did not move here until he was 12 years old. And, in fact, he didn't even start playing basketball till I believe he was an 8th grader, maybe 9th grader, in the United States, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where he moved to when he came here. Do you know where Patrick Ewing was born and came from? He was born in 1962 and came to the United States in 1974. You know what country he came from?
I could do a really horrible impersonation of the Jamaica Man thing. But yeah, he was a fan, hopefully, of the Jamaican bobsled team when that was big in the Winter Olympics, because Patrick Ewing was born in Jamaica.
Patrick Ewing, born in 1962 in Kingston, Jamaica. And, of course, we will see the big man and see if he brings his stool. Remember his big stool he brought last year? Down for 6'11", 7 foot. So a regular stool doesn't work for him. So he has a stool that most of us would have to climb up to get on, but fits him well. Well, again, we hope the Musketeers have a better run this week, and we'll be back probably next Monday. We'd like to thank Mike Goodpasser and the Grueling Truth Network for putting us on the air, all the places that he puts us out there so you can listen to us, and thanks to all of you that listen to us. Any parting comments? You see it's we're close to halftime here. It looks like Clemson's up 21-16. I know, Bill, with your football coaching background, probably eager to watch the rest of the national championship game. Any final thoughts about the Musketeers?
Nothing at this time, Jim.
All right. Well, we'll just close by saying, go Muskies.
Go Muskies.